Hi.
Hello again. We're in the Proclaimer's book, page 14. We've just discussed Abel. Was he a Jehovah's Witness? And now they take up the examples of Enoch and Noah. So Vivian will read the first paragraph. We'll only cover 3 paragraphs, by the way, before they get past Noah and get to Abraham. So let's just see how they cover it first, and then we'll analyze.
About 5 centuries after Abel's death, Enoch began walking with God, pursuing a course in harmony with Jehovah's standards of good and bad. By then, rejection of God's sovereignty had led to a proliferation of ungodly practices among humankind. Enoch was convinced that the Supreme Sovereign would act against ungodly persons, and God's Spirit moved him to proclaim their future destruction. Enoch remained a faithful witness even to death, for Jehovah took him, apparently sparing him a violent death at the hands of his enemies. Enoch's name could thus be added to the growing list of the great cloud of witnesses of pre-Christian times.
A spirit of ungodliness continued to pervade human affairs. During the lifetime of Noah, who was born about 70 years after Enoch's death, angelic sons of God came to the earth, evidently materializing in human form, and cohabited with attractive women. The offspring they produced were known as Nephilim. They were giants among men. What was the result of this unnatural union of spirit creatures with humans, and of the hybrid race thus produced? The inspired record answers, consequently, Jehovah saw that the badness of men was abundant in the earth, and every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only bad all the time. So God saw the earth, and look, it was ruined, because all flesh had ruined its way on the earth. How sad that the earth, God's footstool, was full of violence. I think we could say amen to a lot of this, but there are several things in here that are worth commenting on. But let's read the final paragraph about Noah first.
In contrast, Noah was a righteous man, one who proved himself faultless among his contemporaries. He demonstrated his submission to God's sovereignty by doing just as God commanded. Acting in faith, he constructed an ark for saving of his household. But Noah was more than a builder. As a preacher or herald of righteousness, he warned of the coming destruction. Despite Noah's bold witnessing, however, the wicked generation took no note until the flood came and swept them all away.
Well, there's 2 assumptions about chronology that, of course, I wouldn't have thought about when I was a witness. The first is in the first line of the first paragraph. About 5 centuries after Abel's death, Enoch began walking with God. And then in the second paragraph, Noah, who was born about 70 years after Enoch's death. So this is all assuming a continuous chronology in Genesis 5, which even many conservatives in the evangelical world do not assume. So you're doing eisegesis here in reading into the text, chronological details that just aren't there.
Even the line that he's pursuing in harmony with Jehovah's standards of good and bad. Well, you're not given a list of standards. All you're told is that he had faith.
Walked with God.
He walked with God. He pleased God. It doesn't say, he knew all the rules and he had a list of things that he had to fulfill.
This phrase, Enoch began walking with God, and then they add to that, pursuing a course in harmony with Jehovah's standards, just like they added to the Abel discussion, the idea of a faithful course, contrasting him with his parents. Again, reading into the text, what's not there. Enoch lives, according to the chronology of Genesis 5, 365 years. We don't know what he did with that, whether his course was generally faithful. We have so little information. All we know is that God was pleased with his faith. That's why he's in Hebrews chapter 11.
So I also had a problem with it. It says Enoch remained a faithful witness even to death, Well, first of all, the text actually says he doesn't die. The text says he's taken.
Yeah.
So, in other places it tells you he didn't die.
Translated is the way some Bibles render it. Translated, what does that mean? Well, it certainly doesn't signify he died.
And then saying that he apparently spares him from a violent death at the hands of his enemies. Well, this is all your own imagination that's giving this as a reason. Even the expression remained a faithful witness. I think, we don't really know a lot about Enoch's life, but I think it's putting an enormous pressure on witnesses, giving them the impression that people can remain faithful and not mess up at all in their entire lives. That's possible. So I think that's putting a lot of pressure on witnesses. And if you do fall, it must make you just feel lousy.
Well, we have a contrast with Noah, don't we? And of course with other saints later. Isaac and Jacob both build altars and offer sacrifices and worship the Lord, but they sure mess up. Yeah. So where we do have details, as in the case of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and many more later, David is an outstanding example.
And that's why they had to sacrifice.
They're men of faith, but they're not faithful in the sense that the Watchtower wants you to believe they were.
Yeah.
That is, people who kept their integrity. And some of them are much worse than just not consistent in their keeping of integrity. Some of them are actually total mess-ups. Jacob and David and Samson come to mind. So I think I agree that they're putting a tremendous amount of pressure on believers. The contrast with Noah too, i.e., what is Noah's witness?
Yeah, I think the fact that they all are constructing altars and worshiping proves that they didn't think that they were totally faithful. No. Otherwise, they recognized their need. And so they all built altars, they all sacrificed to God. They wouldn't have to do that if they were never making any mistakes.
So Noah offering sacrifices apparently while he's on the ark, for instance.
Yeah.
We know nothing about his wife and his children and their wives as to their moral stature, their faithfulness to God. All we know is that Noah offered sacrifices to God for them, as Job does later.
That's
for
right.
his children.
So going on to the ark, we're not told Noah and his family were faithful. We're only told about Noah. Mm-hmm. And then we know that Noah messed up afterwards. Mm-hmm. After he's released from the ark, he messes up. And his children mess up.
They don't seem to be men of admirable character, consistently anyway. No.
Yeah. So it's not perfection that we're told that we could accomplish that. I think his great witness was what he had parked in his driveway.
Yeah.
The ark. I'm sure that must have caused the neighborhood to be talking. What is he expecting? That he's building this thing.
Well, at the very least, he's taking God at his word when he said, "My spirit will not dwell with man forever," in that he's also flesh, accordingly 120 years. So he takes that and he performs a work, and apparently has the collaboration of his family in that.
Yeah,
he performs a work that shows he has faith in God's revealed word.
He demonstrates by his actions. That is his great witness to others. As
indeed Samson did in his last efforts. You remember bringing down the temple on the Philistines. And David did throughout his life, but not without stuff that would embarrass us and cause us to doubt our own salvation, our relationship with God.
Yeah.
We'll put a link into a video we did from the Apostle James. What is true religion? Because that phrase isn't used in the Bible very often at all, and James is actually the only one who uses it in the New Testament. What's true religion according to James? Because wasn't it James who said, "We all stumble many times"? So if that's true of everybody, including James, then what is our hope? What constitutes true religion, an expression of true religion before the true God? So I'll put a link into...
You'll have to watch the video.
Yeah.
The end of the link.
See you next time.